In this video, we're going to be looking at taking a finished textured painted model in Substance Painter, exporting those textures and getting them into Maya and rendered using Redshift. We're going to use a couple different methods here. I'll put chapters in the description so you guys can jump to stuff quickly, so you're not wasting too much time. I am going to take my time explaining things, so this wasn't going to be one of those super fast videos. It's going to be thorough, as mine usually are, for better or for worse. So here we go. We're going to kick things off. This is something I just threw together very quickly. I didn't spend any time on it. I just dragged and dropped stuff on here and changed a couple colors. I was thinking though that if we're going to see anything with a normal map, this does have some texture on there from the brushed metal look, but very, very little. So I'm going to go ahead and I threw in a snake or reptile texture here. This isn't what I'm looking for, but this will just give something for us to check out with the height maps and the normal maps and make sure things are working correctly. So for better or for worse, we're going to consider this model done. We're ready to export. I'm going to go to File and Export Textures. I'm not going to go deep into this. We're just going to hit the main stuff. But in our main settings, you just want to go to the output directory. And for this one, I like to, I'm in the source images folder for my project, and the Pete staff is what I'm working on. And here, I'm just going to add a new folder. I like to keep my I will say bump texture. I like to keep my, sorry about that. I like to keep my all my renders that belong together in one folder. As you can see in these previous ones, you can't see the files in there. That way, when I'm going to assign them, it's really easy. I don't have to look through hundreds and hundreds of textures to find what I'm looking for. I know that all these ones that get exported here belong together. So I'll select that folder. It looks like it didn't actually select it. There we go. For output template, you can either use Redshift, if you're going to be rendering at Redshift, which we are, which does a nice job, or if you prefer, you can just go out plain old PBR metallic roughness, which will also do a good job. I'm going to use PNGs. I like the kind of built-in alphas that are easy to use. And for size, I'm going to go for something higher quality. This is for a film. 2048 is what I'm going to use. You can experiment with this as well. This probably would have been good to put in the name of the folder, but I can change that later as well. But just so you have full information there. And then for padding, I always use Dilate Infinite. That takes your, you'll see it later, but it takes your texture and at the edge of the UV shells, it extends it infinitely until it hits another UV shell, or until it hits another extension from a UV shell, and that helps cover up cracks and seams and things like that that might pop up later. You do want to check that, make sure that everything here is checked, so it's going to export textures from all objects in your scene, or all groups, texture groups. Under the output template, don't be scared by all this stuff. I'm not going to go over it here, but this is where you can customize this to send out exactly what you want for each channel, alphas, RGBs, gray, what have you. By choosing these settings here, it should do it automatically for you. I like to go to the list of exports and see what it's actually going to put out. Here we can get a base color, emissive, height, metallic, normal, and roughness, which should really cover our bases. I don't even need the emissive. I could pull it out. I'm not going to worry about it right now. They're really small anyway. One thing that's really important here that I do want to point out is, let's see here, I'm going to choose the correct one, which is the PBR metallic roughness. This is what we're actually putting out. It is important if you're going to use one of the tools in Maya in the Substance plugin that your base color is called base color, and some of these things that the setting is actually called color. I'm actually going to do a lowercase b because that's how Maya identifies it, although I don't think it matters. But base color is how Maya identifies the base color setting. So it says color, or sometimes you hear albedo. I don't think you'd hear beauty here, but that's also, I guess, possible, but that should include everything, which we're not doing here. So that's what we're looking for. And again, I'll double check my exports. This looks good. It also lists the UDIM for each one. So if there are multiple UDIMs, it'll do multiple UDIMs. Or if each one's on a different UDIM, you'll see that here too. So you can double check all that information. looking good for me. So I'm going to go back to settings and then hit export. This is a relatively simple project, so they're going to export really quickly. So once I'm done, then we're done here with Substance Painter. I'm going to switch over to Maya. So before we move on, I just want to double check that I got what I thought I got. So over here is I'm in the source images folder for Pete Staff. I'm going to go to Redshift textures, and here we are. We can look at all the names. You can see what it's done here is we have the object of the group, energy rail, gold accent secondary, staff main, and then each one has a listing of the type of map it is plus the UDIM that it's on. That being said, there's some additional information here I don't need, which makes this a little bit gross to look at. These work just fine as is. Also notice the sizes are quite small other than base colors. They're pretty efficient maps, so that's a good thing to remember too with the PNGs. Little extra tip here that some of you might be interested in. You can easily rename these. My favorite tool is I have it built in here. If you right click and open up, where is it? Bulk Renamer. The bulk renaming tool is just awesome. I use it all the time. Again, this step isn't necessary, but I like to keep things clean. I could actually set this up to name better out of Substance. I haven't done that yet, so this is my current fix. But basically over here you have the current name of the files in the folder, and then here's their change name, which currently there's no changes. And down here you have all these settings and different ways to change them. So you can remove text off the front, gives you a sample here of what you're doing. You can remove text off the end. You can replace text, whatever you want. In fact, here I'm going to grab all of them so it's doing it to everything. So I just did shift there. In this case, I just have stuff in the middle I don't need. I just need to know it's the staff Pete and version 2. That's all I need to know. So again, this is just me being a bit anal retentive. So I'm just going to go to replace and replace wherever it says added accent with nothing. So now you can see my fixed files just are a little bit smaller, a little bit cleaner, and most importantly, they're easier to read, which is what I like here. I could even maybe add in an extra hyphen here so that it's even faster to catch the name of, oops. Actually, I want to add it in before the base color. That's fine. And I actually kind of like it. So I'll put that in there. It just makes it easier to find what these things are later on. That's it. I just hit rename and it's done. They're all renamed. I love this tool. So here's the renamed ones. So again, bulk renamer, it's free. Recommend downloading it, spreading the good word. So that all looks good. We're going to do this 2 different methods. I'm going to show you the fast method using the Substance plugin, which is the recommended way for most people, just because it's so fast compared to the manual way. But I think it's good to know how the manual way works too, in case you need to set stuff up or adjust things. Or if you're working with a new renderer other than Redshift and you're trying to connect things manually, this will make more sense for you later on. Okay, before we start actually putting our textures in here and creating our shaders, we're going to need a light to test these and see what these actually look like. I believe Redshift will render without a light in here. It'll just do a default, but I want to have something I can change highlights on, something that might look like it did in Substance Painter. You can actually load in an HDRI, I believe, in Substance Painter to make sure they look exactly the same, which would be great. Or not exact, but they're never exact, but very, very close. The easiest thing to do here is just use a Redshift dome light. This basically uses an HDRI image as a light source, and it gives incredibly realistic light very quickly, and it renders really fast. So double bonus for us. So I'm just going to go over here to Redshift menu and go to lights and choose the dome light. Doesn't matter how big it is, so I'm just going to leave it this little bubble on the floor. It'll still cover the whole scene. The image wraps around everything, so I do not believe it matters. I haven't seen it before. Mattering, that is. So I'm just going to click on the dome light, press Control-A for the attribute editor, and here under the texture tab, I'm going to load in an HDRI image. So I have a whole bunch right here of interior and exterior spaces. I'm going to do an exterior space, In this case, I'm going to use the Meadow 2K. Just for what it's worth, a quick shout out to Polyhaven. They're amazing, a great source for textures and especially these HDRI images. Totally free, which is incredible, and the quality is also equally incredible. I'm trying to make this bigger. My mouse is giving me issues. There we go. If you just go under Assets, you can choose Models, Textures, HDRIs. I'm just going to go to HDRI. You can choose through here to find out ones you want, but otherwise just click on the thing that looks good to you. There's a full HDRI image. And then under here you can choose your resolution, sometimes up to ridiculous resolutions, but there they are. For us, 2, 4, maybe 8 is plenty. And then you just choose your format, EXR or HDR. I'm going to choose EXR. And then you just click on download and it's yours. Pretty amazing, honestly. I'll put that address in the description. So here we are. I already picked out the meadow from before. Later on, if you realize you need to change some of the lighting, like and make it more intense or change the exposure, you can adjust it here with color, intensity, and exposure. Color makes a big effect. Give this a tint and it tints everything to that color. It's pretty powerful. So another fun way to play. So this is now in there ready to go. If I do an IPR render right now, you will see the current background in there. And I'll make this a little bit smaller. As I move around, you'll see the background moves almost real time here with Redshift. Pretty amazing. Let's move in a little bit closer. And you can try to find a setting that gives you some nice highlights. That bright spot over there will probably hit at some point. A little tough to see here just partly because this doesn't have any much in the way of reflective properties. I might choose a brighter one too, but for right now, let's see here. Just trying to find something with some good separation of. I might choose a different map, but for right now it's fine. I can at least see differences between the side and the front, so we'll go with that. The background image there is a little bit obnoxious, so sometimes it's helpful for knowing where you are in space, but usually it's something you just want to get rid of. If you go down to the Environment tab in the dome light and just turn off the background, it'll just render this solo. So I'm going to stick this over here for now. We'll look at that later. So now we're good to go on lighting. So there's two main methods to creating shaders in Maya that will work with Redshift and have the substance textures in there. The first way is using the substance plugin. You can see if you have it. If you go to your shelves, you'll look for substance, and it has just a handful of buttons here, but these are really, really helpful. I'm still learning how to use these things, but a few of these are just massive time savers. If you have it, I'd probably recommend using it. If you don't see it here, you can go to Window, Settings and Preferences, and Plugin Manager. And if you have Substance loaded, you should be able just to type in a search for Substance. There it is. So you just want to make sure it's loaded and then auto-loaded, so every time you open up Maya, it comes in. I guess check all of these. I don't know which one brings in the shelf, to be honest, but you'd want them all. So for this one, it's so easy. You're going to, if you've been doing it the manual way, definitely consider switching. You basically go over here to this Apply Workflow button and click on it. And it's going to ask you, it's going to basically create a shader for you out of the maps that you select. You just select which kind of workflow, Arnold, RenderMan, Vray, Redshift, whatever you got. It should probably depend, I'm assuming it's going to depend on what you've loaded in to your computer. So Redshift is what I'm looking for, of course. You can load in each individual map, but the much easier way, assuming that this is the same naming convention that you've used, exporting out of Substance. If not, you can go into Substance and change this. If you recall, when we did the file export, and we were looking at the output template for Redshift. Make this a bit bigger. Right here where it says base color, roughness, metalness, normal, displacement, height field, all these things are what it's going to be looking for. So you can change those names here and it will change their names in the export and it'll work much more smoothly. I might have trouble with that height. Let's see. So, because it has a different name. So you got to select multiple maps. You drive to wherever your source images are. So I'm going to source images and Pete Staff. I'm looking on, this is where having things in folders is really helpful. This is the version I'm working on, version 4. And here's all my maps. So all I need to do is find the ones for the first shader I want to make. And the first shader I'm going to make is going to be for the staff itself. So I'm just going to go over here to staff main. I'm going to grab all of these. Oh, it looks like the height actually was called height, not displacement height map. So great. These are all the correct names, including the base color. And I choose select. It auto loads them all in here. Ambient occlusion I'm going to render. You could bake this in, but I'm going to render it later on the actual scene. So I'm going to hit apply. It did give me an error. We'll see if that's actually an issue. It hasn't been so far. I'll go into my hyper shade. And what I should find now, trying not to get this locked in here. What I should find now is there's a new RS material and everything's already connected and ready to go. It's basically done. You just want to make sure you rename these things. So I'll call this RS staff brushed metal. Don't be afraid to be specific. So you can always find it later on. If you were to pull this down into this map section, so I'm just going to middle mouse click and drag and then hit the input output button. You can also just click on it and hit input output. You'll see here, oh, I can't make it bigger. Okay, I don't want to pull it off, but I'm going to pull it off for you guys. Or maybe I'll just open this up a bit more. There. So if you zoom in here, you'll see that it's made every single connection, and it's actually done it really efficiently with place 2D nodes and that are being used by everything. Has all the displacement set up, done and ready to go. The one thing I don't like about this, well, I'll come back to that later. Let's just see what we got now. So at this point, I can apply it. So how am I going to apply it? I guess there's different ways to do it. You can use your UVs to apply it. The fastest way, if you've done color IDs like we've done here, like we did before in the previous video. So I have this one texture here, staff main. I can just right click and choose select material, select objects with material, and it will grab all the objects in the model that have that material. And then all I have to do is reassign them, right click, assign material to selection to the new one. And I'm good to go. You can test it right away with an IPR render. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. By the way, I did change the dome HDRI to something a little bit shinier, a little bit brighter, more contrasty, just so we can see things better. So going back to my Redshift and hit IPR render. And you can see it's already applied everything. It's good to go. I forgot to turn off the background though. Let's do that. So there we go. I always try to rotate in there because it just looks like you could. So you can see everything's applied, and this actually looks like it does in Painter. Of course, depends on the light that you're using, but same look I'm getting in there. So great match, and I didn't have to do much at all. So that is by far the fastest way I have found to get shaders hooked up and ready to go into Maya from Painter. And obviously that same workflow would work with Arnold or Vray, whatever else you're using. Now I did mention there was one downside to that method, and this could just be lack of experience with it on my part, but what I did find was if you look at the shader itself, which is going to be a little bit tough to see just because we're so tight on real estate here. If you look at the shader itself, there's some things I'm not familiar with that didn't actually transfer correctly. Or I'm sorry, it didn't transfer in a way that I'm familiar with. If I click on the main shader here and you look at color here, it doesn't appear to be connected to anything, even if I open it up. But if you look over here, it clearly is connected to something. And what it's connected to is is a multiply divide node, and I'm assuming that our color map, our base color, is somehow connected to that, because if you look over here, that doesn't appear to be the case. So I do not know how these things are currently connected. Even if I try to open up the graph here, it doesn't ever show this to me. It just shows me the place 2D texture node, the base color, and again, the multiply divide node never comes up. So I don't know what I'm missing here. Again, this could be lack of experience on my part. I've done this for a long time, but this is my first time using this. So I don't know what that's doing, but I do know that it does look correct. Same thing with the displacement shader, which is the height map. If you look over here, it is also connected, but it doesn't actually show up, even if you try to expand the map. Oh, actually not in this case. There is a displacement node, and there is the height map. So it does show up there. I just don't know how to find that multiply divide, so I just don't know how color is connected. So that might cause issues if you are trying to fix things or adjust things manually. But again, you can always, even with that color node, you can always just pop through the, well, I guess you can't really get to it here either. So keep that in mind. Again, good reason to know about how the manual way works. If you want to, you could do everything here automatic, except for color, and then set it up yourself if you know the manual method, which I'm about to show you. Okay, let's look at the manual method of connecting. This actually combines a few different methods that I've seen from other people online, that this is the way that I like to work. I'm going to go ahead and name this version 1, or we'll call it auto. We'll do a new one that is manual. So here, I'm again try to give myself a little bit more real estate. I guess I'm kind of maxed out. That's just what we get at this resolution. I should do things 4K, I guess. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit this clear button here, which just clears the graph, doesn't delete anything, just clears stuff. If you actually select that stuff and delete it, it will actually delete the shader that you just made. We don't want that. So the first thing we need to do here in creating the shader ourselves is I'm going to go in here. You could go over here and find the shader that you're looking for. So I could go to Redshift, shaders, and then look through all these different things to find it. But I find that really slow and frustrating. Easier for me is to go here and you hit tab and just do a search for what you want. In this case, it's Redshift. And we're going to be using, let's see here, the standard material. So Redshift standard material. If you click on it, it automatically gives you the material node, and then it gives you the shading engine node. I actually don't know what this node is called, but that's what we're going to call it. If anybody knows, feel free to throw it in the comments and educate me. So I find the easiest way to connect all these things, you could go here and click on all the buttons, but I find that really slow. A faster way of doing this is pulling up your images you rendered. This is again where it pays to be organized here. So source images, Pete staff, and then here's my bump texture, and then here's all my files. So choose which one we're going to do. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and redo the staff so we can compare it to the other one and see if it's actually the same. So I will grab the staff main maps or texture files and drop them in here. When you drop them in here, they automatically load, and each one gets its own place 2D texture node. So another nice thing is they're all labeled by the name of the file, whereas in the automatic one it doesn't do that for whatever reason. So I can go over here and kind of line these up in some kind of order. If this is the height map, over here we have metallic. What I really want is get that color node. Here's a normal map. Probably I would be doing after the metallic. As long as they're in some reasonable order, that's okay. With the roughness here. Again, if I was doing this on my own, I would just I would just make this the size of the whole screen. So for this, if you just select them and you left mouse button, you can just kind of move them around at will, which is nice. I'm going to put the base color at the top. emissive, excuse me, sorry for that. The emissive we're not going to be using, so I'm just going to delete that. And we'll pull the base color down. And then I know I'm going to be doing, let's see here, the roughness, probably right after the base color, followed by the metallic. So I'll just kind of organize these a little bit better. This makes things a little bit easier to work. Again, totally unnecessary, unless it just helps you think. So here we go. So the way this works is we're just going to select the main shader node here, and you can literally just middle mouse click, drag and drop this onto the channel that you want. In this case, the base color goes into color, so that automatically just lines up there. And I can do that for each one, but each one requires a few changes in settings or a few things you want to double check. So the color one is just a one-to-one. Once you get it in there, you're good to go. It just works. The roughness, again, each one is a little bit different. You want to go over here and double check that your color space for the roughness is set to raw. It usually comes in at sRGB, and if you do that, it's just not going to work. So this is really, really important. Once you have that, we can go ahead and click on the shader again, and again, drag and drop this onto, in this case for reflection, we're looking for roughness. It's right here. I can drag and drop, and now we get the roughness setting. Now I should mention that if you get the wrong roughness on here, which you might, just dragging and dropping, it might be because you're using the alpha channel, and I've had mixed bag results with this depending on what I'm trying to do. Sometimes you're going to get better results or more accurate results if you delete the alpha channel and instead grab one of the RGB channels, it doesn't matter which one, and instead drag this into roughness instead, make sure it's reflective roughness. I've gotten better results that way, or more accurate results. For the metallic channel, again, we're just going to drag and drop this into metallic. The metallic setting is right here, or metalness. So I'm just going to drag and drop that on the metalness. This one isn't listed here, so you'll just have to use the option up here. Metalness does work as a alpha channel. You just want to again make sure that your color space is set to raw. It'll probably be sRGB. I should mention the reason why mine are automatically the correct type is because I actually set this in my color space settings under Windows Settings and Preferences, and choosing under Color Management. You can set up a rule that says when a file comes in and contains the word roughness, that's going to automatically make that input color space raw instead of sRGB. And the way you do that is you just include a star at the beginning and end, which says it can be anywhere in the file name, a bracket at the beginning and end here around a lowercase r and uppercase r, so it can be either a lowercase or uppercase r, and then the word rough. I did that same thing for normals, which also have to be raw, and for metal. I just make these as new, you're just adding them as a new rule. So nice little trick there to save you time. Cool. So we have metallic, we have roughness, we have base color. You can already see that even with these, it's already looking very close, if not the same as the brush metal here. We just don't have the normal map yet, which would definitely make a difference. So for the normal map is located here. If you go, if you scroll down under geometry, actually, you're looking for the bump map here. So ignore the coat. The geometry, and I'm going to go to normal map and drag and drop the bump map on here. Except for that's going to make a direct connection. If we look at the original one, what you'll see, you can see how much it changed pretty dramatically. We're missing a node in between here that's really important. So I'm going to delete that. And instead, click on Tab, and we're going to search for a Redshift bump node, which we need to go in between these two to communicate what the information is. So I'm going to type in Redshift bump, and bump map is the one we want. Here's the actual node. So I'm going to do, I can click on here and click on it this way, or again, drag your arrow. So I believe it is out alpha to input. Didn't like that. Let's try color. All right, color it is. This might be another one where we need to do the individual type. We'll double check it, but for right now, it's going to leave that. And then out goes into bump input here. And now we're connected. So now you can see this is connected, and now it looks back to what it's supposed to look like. We can't see the bump here. It's a pretty subtle one. We'll see it more in that lizard texture that when I try this out later. The height map is a similar situation. We need to connect this to the displacement shader, except for here. Oh, and I forgot to mention, we also, once again, for bump map, need to make sure that we're raw. Otherwise, this won't work. And in the bump node here, we want to make sure that the input map type is tangent space normal. So again, click on the bump map node, tangent space normal, and under height scale, we need to set this to 1. So it's a 1-to-1 if it's coming out of Substance Painter. You can even overdrive this if you want to have a more prominent set of normals. So that's really, really important. Sorry, I forgot that. For the displacement map, we need another utility node here. So I'm going to once again tab, and we're going to type in Redshift displacement. Obviously, if you're working Arnold, you would need the Arnold one. Vray, you need the Vray one. So here's the Redshift displacement node. So again, here, we can just drag and drop this onto texture map. So it'll connect it automatically. In fact, let's do that here too, just to make sure I got the right one. So there's our input. And yeah, so it did the full out color. So that was correct. So displacement node here, and then the out here goes to displacement shader here. And for our settings here, they should actually be default correct. So this is actually good. I don't think we need to change. Yeah, this is correct. So this is the full set. You want to again make sure here for your displacement map, I again believe it is the out color. So I think that is correct. If you try to connect something that it doesn't like here, if I try to connect the red by itself, it'll just give me an error. So this one does have to be all 3 color. And then, sorry, I was also talking about the color space here, sRGB. We'll double check it, but I believe that this one actually is an sRGB channel, not a raw. All right, so that is how you create the shader manually. Obviously, a much more intensive ordeal, but you do have complete control over everything here. We have a lot more placement nodes. It's a little bit slower. I don't believe this would affect the render time, but it's something to be aware of. In the end, this does look the same, so I'm not really seeing any differences here, which means we probably did it right. And we can double check here in the render. So if I do a quick IPR render here, okay, that looks like it's done. So I'm just going to add this as a snapshot. There we go. So I'll take a snapshot. This will be number 4, and then we'll compare it with the one that we just made. So over here, I'm just going to right click and choose, oh, actually let's change the name before we forget what we're looking at here. So RS staff brushed metal manual. Cool. So I'm going to first select objects with that material, and then right click and assign material to selection. It's already rendered the new one. I guess it's progressive rendering, but I'm not going to let it go for any longer than this. Let's go ahead and do a snapshot. And we can compare. Now there's some very slight differences here, but it's probably just because it hasn't fully rendered yet, or they rendered different amount of time. So we got it. Looks great. All right, I'm going to go ahead and finish off the rest of these shaders. I'm going to use the faster method for these, and then we'll come back and take a look at the final result. All right, so I went ahead and made those shaders. It took maybe like 10 to 15 seconds per shader to create it and apply it, so it was a really quick process. I did find out that this texture wasn't really applied very well, so I went back and fixed that, re-exported out of Painter, which also didn't take long. So overall, very, very fast process. If you compare the results, here's what we're looking for the staff currently, and then here's what we had in Painter. So ultimately, so Painter here on the right, ultimately, you know, it looks extremely close. The main difference here would just be the lighting, but it's a great match overall. So better than I usually get in other methods. So really pleased with that. I did notice here that I'm not actually getting a full height map here, so it's not actually bumping out the material. The silhouette hasn't changed. And likewise, if you're looking in Maya here, while it does have a nice dimensional aspect to it, I'm not getting the bump here either. So that's something I have to work on to actually get a physical change in the map, and not just the impression of bump on there. So that means my displacement map isn't working as well as it should, but that's actually, it is working correctly. It's just not working out of Painter. So that's something I have to work on as well. One quick note here, which I did make a mistake on before. If I go back in the Hypershade, when you're doing your displacement node, so let's look at the manual one here. I'm going to clear this out, and that's the manual one. So when you're doing the displacement node, to make that appear, you have to click on here and then click on the double arrows again. That should then show both then up and down chain here, including displacement. So here was our texture map, and then on here, where we actually loaded in the map, you do actually want the color space to be raw, not sRGB. So that should be raw for that one. Other than that, everything was correct. So that is how you go from Maya to Substance and back again. So hopefully that helps you out. Good luck on whatever projects you're working on. Oh, I forgot to mention, well, first of all, if you made it this far, congratulations. You must have the patience of a saint, or you're actually that desperate for information and the deep dive. But thank you for checking this out. If you do have further thoughts, or discover better methods, or find out any mistakes that I've made, I'm not shy. Please throw them in the comment section. I love to always improve my methods and pass those along to others. So again, thank you, and good luck on any of the projects that you're working on.